You feel alive. You feel that aliveness and that growth, as opposed to when you're not in alignment, that's where the lack is. That's how you know if you're not in alignment because you feel bad,
Mhm.
right? You're not in the flow, right? You're stuck. You're in fight mode. You're spiraling around. It feels like you're spiraling and spraying kind of thing. And that's where we get into a place where we can stay stuck. But alignment can literally be just a thought away. Alignment can be an intention away.
Welcome to the Soulfull Sound podcast, where you will find conscious, inspiring content to support your healing and transformation. Now, before we jump into today's episode, I want to extend a heartfelt invitation for you to be part of our community, where more insightful conversations await to guide you to heal, grow, and thrive. Simply click the subscribe button. It means the world to me, and your engagement is a big part of us reaching the hearts of other beautiful souls like you. Thank you so much for joining. Sending you love, healing, and sound wherever you are. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the latest episode on the Soulful Sound podcast, where I am joined by the gorgeous Christy Whitman, who is a New York Times bestselling author and transformational leader. Now, she teaches you how to overcome fight or flight and create a state of flow. Welcome in, Christy.
Thank you, Simone. I'm so happy to be here with you. Hi, everyone.
Wonderful. So I usually like to kind of top and tail a little bit about the personal story. Now, what got you into flow and really taking yourself? I mean, share wherever feels right in your life, but I'm sure you've got a story that's led you to where you are and this beautiful flow state that you're working consciously with.
Well, you know how pain and agony and despair, they're really good contrasting things to have you desiring for something more. And that's where I was about 35 years ago,
Mm.
where I just was so tired of feeling the way I felt, even though my outer accomplishments, it's like I interpreted that there was a checklist of things that would make me happy. And
Mm.
I checked those things off, right? I went to college, I got a degree, I started having a career, I had money in the bank, I had a healthy body, I was engaged to be married, and I was miserable. And
Mm.
that was really depressing for me because it's like, well, wait a minute, I thought all these things, if I checked the boxes, then I would finally be happy. And it wasn't the case. It was like, why am I not satisfied? And that for me really started this hunger, this thirst of there's got to be something more to this. There's got to be something more sustainable. There's got to be something more fulfilling. And those questions, those kind of like, really bigger questions brought me to learn how to meditate. And my journey began about, I want to say 30-ish years ago, where I met a hairdresser who was cutting my hair, and she had such a bubbly way about her but she was different than just being happy. There was something so different. And I just had to ask her, I'm like, okay, what do you do? And
Mm.
she said, I meditate. Now, this is in the mid 90s where there wasn't internet, it was just getting started. I didn't know anybody that meditated. So for me, it was like, you meditate, right? And she introduced me to her meditation teacher. And Melanie completely changed my life because when I went to go see her at her house, she looked me dead in the eyes, right into my soul. And she said, you create your reality.
Mm.
And something in me was like, yes, that's true. I knew that somewhere within me, I knew that to be true. But then my human part said, well, how? How do I create my own reality? And then she said, by your thoughts, you're either repelling things from you or attracting things to you based on the way you think. Now, she could see that that tweaked me a little too, because I was like, my thoughts, the way I think, because I thought
Mm.
I was my thoughts. I believed every thought in my head is true. And so she's like, all right, let's take a pause. I want you to just go into your life for the next week and just pay attention to the thoughts and
Mm.
don't do much with it. Just observe your thoughts. And you are the observer, you're not the thoughts, which practicing that for a week, I couldn't believe how negative I was.
Mm.
inside. I even told my best friends in seventh grade, I'm like, I am so negative, Dawn. And she's like, what are you talking about? You're the most bubbly up, positive person I know. And I'm like, well, then something's happening between inside and outside because
Mm.
inside of here, this is bad. Does not feel, I don't feel good inside of myself.
Mm.
And so that's where my journey began because I started to learn about what the difference is between a lack mentality, a scarcity mentality, and an abundant mentality. And I had been reared in a scarcity mentality. I just talked to my 89-year-old mother at less than a half an hour ago, and she's in fear of not having enough money when she has plenty of money. She's terrified, worried about it, right? And so it doesn't matter if we have it or not, the feeling of being afraid and worrying and doubt, that's all coming from scarcity. So for me, it was really just my own journey to heal that and to shift into an abundant mentality. And when I was doing that, things started changing. I literally I went from having a career that I loved to not having a career. I quit my job. I couldn't stand doing it anymore. I got $60,000 in credit card debt. I had gained 30 pounds. I was alone in a city I didn't know. And now that I met Melanie and I was changing my thoughts and shifting from scarcity to abundance, I lost all the weight. I got out of debt. I met a really nice guy because the guys I used to date were bad boys,
Mm.
right? So I was in an 8-year relationship with this nice guy, married to him for 5. And just everything started changing. And the one thing that really changed was that I had my first book, Perfect Pictures, download through me. And I got it published and started speaking on the contents of it. And more people were leaning in, going, I want to change too. And so for 25 years now, I'm on my 7th book, The Flow Factor, which is coming out. It's been a big journey for 25 years of being able to help people move out of that scarcity and the pain of scarcity and that drama and that chaos and into neutrality, compassion, and then moving into abundance and being able to thrive.
Yes. Wow, what a beautiful story. There's so many nuggets to pull from that. And I know that often, especially for those listening, they've heard a lot of your transformations. I know you framed it in 30, 35 years, but it was like from this to this to this to this, and here I am. And
Yeah.
so, for someone listening what is the scarcity mindset? How do I know I even have that or I'm coming from that paradigm of lack? What are some of the things that people can wake up to or just notice right now that says, you can move to you might want to consider moving to an abundance frequency, a mindset that's going to help you flow, an energy that's going to help you attract, and so on. Speak to that a bit.
Well, I like to say that there are 3 different states of being, right? So lack, that's where all of the emotions, anywhere from boredom all the way down to sadness and powerlessness. So any place where lack, where you are not feeling good, you're in lack. So
Mm.
if you're just going about your day and you're feeling sad for some reason, or you're just feeling irritated for some reason or impatient, that's in lack, right? And behaviors come from that, such as judgment, criticism, comparison, gossiping, procrastination. All of those behaviors come from lack. Lack, Cliff Note version, lack doesn't feel good, right? On the other side of the spectrum is abundance. And that's where any emotion that feels good and uplifting, that's in the space of abundance. And I like to think about, keys on the piano. You got a piano and they all have different keys, they all have different notes, right? The universe is like that. Our emotions are like that. Some are very, very low, some are very, very high. But we are the ones that choose what keys on the piano we play. A lot of times, though, people want to go from lack all the way over into abundance. So, for example, if they're feeling disappointed, they want to just jump into being happy. And it's too big of a leap. It's too big a vibrational jump. And so I say get into that second bucket, which is neutrality. And
Mm.
that's where compassion. We start the flow of what we want. We start the flow and connection of being with ourself, our higher self, the divine, whatever you call it, or however you perceive it, as being in compassion, because the God self, goddess self, that self is never in the negative with us. It doesn't meet us there. And that's why we feel so separate and alone and betrayed and heartbroken, because the bigger, greater part of us stays in that compassion, in that neutrality or greater. One of the biggest things that I learned and I've taught for 25 years is the seven essential laws, not just about law of attraction, but the seven essential laws. And one of the laws that I find is the absolute most essential is the law of sufficiency and abundance. It's not just the law of abundance, it's the law of sufficiency. Are you okay? Can you find a place that, okay, in this moment, I am all right? I like to say, give yourself a hug. When you hug yourself, and you hug yourself for 90 seconds, takes 90 seconds to process an emotion. When you're giving yourself, you're coming into yourself, you're coming into your presence, and you can find that soothing, the limbic system, the fight, flight, freeze, everything starts to relax. That whole survival instinct that we have starts to calm down. Our nerves calm down. This gives us a sense of, I'm supported. I've got my back, right? I'm
Mm.
okay. And once we can find that middle ground, that second range of emotions, then we can ask ourselves, what do I want? What do I
Mm.
want? And why do I want that? And how do I really want to feel? Because most of the things that we want, we think if I just have more money, then I'll feel. If I just find that partner, then I'll feel. If I just have a spiritual connection, then I'll feel, right?
Mm.
There's always something that we want bigger, greater, different, then I'll feel. And the thing is, like the keys on the piano, those are available right now for us to choose. So we can choose to feel the freedom. We can choose to feel the compassion, the joy, the happiness.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love the very practical and bite-sized descriptions. It's very, very beautiful. And I'm curious about the neutral piece. I think it's a beautiful word, that neutrality. We hear a lot about the lack and then the abundance. And of course, yes, there is something between, whether it's neutrality or the void or nothingness and everything at the same time, and all these different ways of looking at it. I want to speak to the neutrality because I love that word. Would that be where you're also able to remove or reduce the charge of
Yes.
the energy and emotions flowing through so that in that space you're reducing the charge, so then you're sitting at the piano again and you're able to say, oh my gosh, there is a piano, or oh, there are keys and I never noticed that one, or those moments. I want to speak a little bit more to the neutrality because I really love that word in the middle.
Well, once we, yes, that's brilliant. Once we get into that neutral place, meaning I'm not yet necessarily over the moon excited about something, but I'm no longer mad. I'm no longer irritated, right? I'm okay. It's
Mm.
like, that's where peace, harmony, that's where flow comes in. That's where we have a different option than that fight. Now, I'd like to say that fighting is not like, okay, I'm gonna, let's put up your dukes, as you will, as they say in the 50s, right? Alex Ferrari just made fun of me for saying that the other day. So, what are you from the 50s? So, it's not like I'm getting in a fight with someone. We could be in a fight, in resistance in our own minds. And
Yes.
that's a survival instinct that we all have. It's wired into us either to push against what we don't want, right? Or we freeze. We don't know what to do. So we don't do anything. I hear this from clients forever that I don't know what to do. I'm stuck. I feel like something's
Mhm.
blocking me. That's that feeling, right? Or the other one is the fleeing, right? The fight, flight, the flight, where it's
Mhm.
like we do more, we do a bunch, we take on more, we feel overwhelmed, we're doing so much, keep moving because we don't want to be present with ourselves. We can't because it's too hurtful, painful, right? It's uncomfortable. And so the neutrality of bringing in compassion, whether it's calling in your soul, I like to imagine a few things that you're in a bubble of light, like a bubble of protection, right? And that this bubble is 5 feet above you, 5 feet below, 5 feet behind, 5 feet in front. It's surrounding you. And just feel the comfort of that,
Yeah.
right? Just the idea that your soul is with you all the time and that energy is here for you. And it's like, right? Putting your hand over your heart. breathing into your belly. These are ways that you can bring yourself back into neutrality and bring yourself back into compassion, which is flow, which is connection and alignment. And once you're there, now you can choose different. Okay, now that I'm feeling better, now I can choose to feel successful. I can go into the I am statements, which are the two most powerful words that you could ever say, right? Because the I am, what's the I am? It's the life force. It's just saying I am. We're here, right? We're present, we're alive. That presence, that aliveness, that spiritual aspect of us, that's the first part. That's the divine part, the I am. And then what we, with our own free will and choice as the human, I am free. So now as you take the I am free, or I am successful, or I am compassionate, those then create a state of being and then will create manifestations based on that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. There are two pieces to this. So I'm gonna reverse engineer it because there's so much more of the second piece that I'd love you to cover. But of course, you mentioned clients coming in and saying, I feel stuck. Things are, I don't know, something's blocking me. And I know there are many words that people use around this when there's not a state of flow, which is resistance or that stuckness or that block. And this is something that many people struggle with on a daily basis. So first, let's speak to the signs that say I'm stuck or in resistance, and then how can we move the needle?
Okay, perfect. So what I hear a lot is I know what I'm supposed to do, but for some reason I'm not doing it,
Mm,
right? I know what I want, but for some reason I'm not getting it. I know I need to do something. I know I want to be something. I know I want to have something. And no matter what I do, I can't seem to either move ahead, manifest it, attract it, create it, right? It even feels like if you are ready to go write music, or if you're going to write an article or start a book, or do something creative where you're like, it's that writer's block kind of syndrome where you go to the typewriter, computer. See, I am
You're
older.
in the 50s
I'm in
again.
the 50s again. I don't know why I keep going back there, but
Love it.
the like writing, like you go to write something, whether it's on a piece of paper and you're just like, I don't know what to even, you could even feel like that with your journal.
Mm,
I hear people say that to me. I put a pen to the journal and I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to write, right? So it's that feeling of your energy, your life force energy is not flowing through you. And what happens is that the back of the head and neck, which is the back part of the brain, which has that part of the fight, flight, freeze, is like stuck,
mm,
right? There's no movement there, or there's so much movement of that you can't get to the higher places and the creativity. The energy's not moving into the higher awareness, the intuition, the expression, like all the higher chakras. And so it stays stuck there. So I like to say that there's an opening at the back of the head and neck. This is a really big release valve for energy. And when you imagine like you're turning on a bathtub, or turning on the water for the bathtub or a radiator or something, you're turning the knob. It's like just even visualizing that you're turning it on, you're opening it up. That energy can then start to release out the back of the head and neck so that there's that energetic movement. And while that's moving out, you can then bring in the energy of your soul. You can bring in the energy of creativity. You could bring in the energy of what you want, right? Focusing on these are three really important questions. What do I want? Why do I want it? And how do I want to feel? The what do I want gets us out of the push against of what we don't want, the contrast, right? In the
mm,
flow factor, I talk a lot about contrast and how we don't want contrast, but contrast is useful as we are in a polarity experience. So contrast many times is the first process or the first start of manifestation, because we're aware of what we don't want, but instead of pushing against it,
mm.
right? We can then ask ourselves, what do I want? Because contrast in this universe that is unlimited and has pure potentiality, contrast will show up, but our resistance to the contrast is optional.
Mm,
right? So we could see something that's contrasting and then immediately give ourselves that compassion for having experienced it, that neutrality point, right? And then once we're there, what do I want focuses the mental body, because we have four bodies: mental body, emotional body, physical body, energy body. It focuses the mental body. What do we want? Then the second is, why do we want it? That gets the emotions going, right? That gets the feeling, that literally gets energy moving of why do I want something? And then the awareness of the third question of, how do I really want to feel? How will I feel in the having of this? I'll
mm,
feel joy, safe, free, right? And that's where you then get to invite your soul in, invite your energy field to vibrate at that frequency. And then we get to tune into it. And that's how you master your energy.
beautiful. It's often why when I speak about the law of attraction now, and I know that that term has been used in so many different ways, I often say the law of reflection. My understanding of as exactly what you've just said, which is being or emitting the frequency of that which you desire, is very different from not having that vibration and going, I really want this, I really want this, I really want this, I really want this. It is the frequency piece, which is why I love that you phrased those three questions, because you are tapping into those energies, which I think is really phenomenal. So the question I wanted to ask, so this is a beautiful segue, is that I know that your work goes beyond mindset and emotional intelligence, though those are important. You do a lot around energy, and you've brought the word soul in, which is absolutely, what I love in the work. And so I'd love to know more about the energy piece to the flow factor and the energy of flow, things like that. If you feel like sharing something around that, that would be awesome.
I would love to. So yeah, to really extend law of attraction understanding, we have to understand that we're not just sending out a frequency and then get what we send out. That's what I used to think 30 years ago, right? Okay, send out good thoughts and then stuff will come back, and then something unwanted would manifest. And I'm like, well, I know about law of attraction. How come I'm getting this, right? We are energy receivers. So we're receiving energy all day, every day. Are we
Yeah.
receiving it from the third dimensional plane, and are we receiving it from a higher plane, right? Are we receiving in the pure positive energy? And that's important because we are energy receivers. We're also energy containers. What are
Yeah.
we holding? What are we containing within our four bodies? That's really important because what we receive in, what we hold and contain, that's what we're transmitting out. So the work isn't in the transmitting out, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. It's in, what am I holding? What am I inviting in? What am I filling myself up with? What am I holding then in my energy container? So you were asking about energy. Yes, it's about mindset. Yes, it's about emotional intelligence. There are five ways that we can master our energy because there's five aspects of our consciousness. One of them is our words, what we say. What we say. In the beginning, there was the word, right? And the word was with God. That's what it says in the Bible, right? Is the word with the good, or is our words with the bad? Are we saying words that expand us and create things for us, or constrict us and detract? I actually created, and I'll offer this to all of your listeners. You can go to, it's a free gift. So you can go to watchyourwords.com. It's plural, watchyourwords.com. And there are 30 videos that are 2 to 3 minutes in length where I talk about the word that you want to avoid using, why, and what you want to say instead. Because there are phrases and words that all of us say, and they immediately pull our energy down. It keeps us stuck in the drama, the chaos, the lack. And it starts that spark. Excuse me. So words are the first one. Thoughts. Now, what are thoughts? They're a series of words, right? So if you're watching your words and you're selective and mindful in the words that you're using, you're going to be more mindful on the thoughts. As I said in the beginning, Melanie, my meditation teacher, said you got to watch your thoughts, right? They're either repelling things from you or attracting things to you. Well, watching your words is easier than watching your thoughts because we've got so many thoughts going all day long. But when you hear yourself saying something that pulls your energy down, we get to neutralize and then choose something different, choose a better feeling thought. So we got words, thoughts, pictures, perspectives, right? What's generating through our minds. We think in pictures. We're constantly out picturing what our mind is thinking about, what we're imagining, what we're visualizing, right? So making sure that the pictures, the movie that's running in your head, right? We're the projector. Light will illuminate through our projector whatever movies we got going on. So are we looking at a horror movie or are we looking at a love story, right? Because we're the ones that can change the tape of whatever we're visualizing. So words, thoughts, perspectives, emotions. Now, this is a big one because are we suppressing, pushing down our emotions? Or are we allowing ourselves to be present with those emotions? And most people aren't because they don't know how to master their emotions. They don't have the tools to realize I'm angry right now, or I'm irritated, or I'm sad, I'm heartbroken. And what can I do about this? So this is why a lot of people use vices. We're drinking way too much coffee, eating way too much sugar. People now, I don't know how it is there. I don't think so in Europe, but everywhere you smell, it's like people are smoking weed everywhere because it's legal, right? It could be shopping, gambling. It could be being on our phones or, doing those behaviors that help us escape because we don't know how to process the uncomfortable or painful feelings that we're feeling that come from lack, right? So knowing how to process your emotions, and PS, by the way, the words, the thoughts, the perspectives, that's all the mind, right? And that's powerful. But what's even more powerful is the emotions. When you have an emotion, that emits a higher frequency. It's a more intense vibration from the emotional body. And then the last is actions. So the behaviors, right? Words, thoughts, perspectives, emotions, behaviors. I talk about this in the flow factor and really break that down. And I give in the back of the book, there's a whole appendix on each of the different four bodies, the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual body. So if you notice that you're in your head about something, there's a process in there, how to change your thoughts, how to let that thought go, how to get out of that and get back into flow so that you have practical daily things that you can do.
That's beautiful. Would you be able to share? I know it's probably hard to say what's your favorite technique because you've come up with some amazing practices that are all very beneficial. Is there one that you feel called to share now to give people an idea? I know that you mentioned meditation for you and starting with that, and you've spoken about the body, the mind, the emotions, and now the energy. So we've got a holistic view. And we speak about neutrality being let's get there and then choose differently, choose better, optimize, all these beautiful things. So what are one, just tell us what one of the practices are so we can get a taste of the kind of things that we'll be practicing.
Well, I'd suggest you do it right now with me. So
Yes.
wrap your arms around you, literally give yourself a hug. And in that, you can even close your eyes, but feel your own comfort and let yourself just breathe into that hug and go down with your awareness into your belly. And any emotions that you're feeling, just think of it as energy and letting that energy just pulsate out, just being present with yourself, wrapping your arms around you, squeezing yourself. And as you're giving yourself this hug, this is where you can tell yourself, you're okay. I've got you. It's going to be all right. Everything's going to work out. I know this doesn't feel good, but I've got you. You're with me. I've got you, right? You've got you. Breathe in. Breathe all the way down into your belly, which is where your emotional body is. And let yourself just feel that compassion. Feel even your soul wrapping its energetic arms around you like a big angel wrapping you in this light. And just feel how you just start to calm down. It just really centers and presents you. See, doesn't
Hmm.
that feel good?
Oh, yes, it does.
That's
I
now I
couldn't stop
feel neutral.
smiling. I was just like,
Right.
oh, yeah, love yourself a little more today. Mm.
Yes. And it starts
So
with just, I
beautiful.
mean, it starts with a hug. And it's interesting because if anybody was watching or listening to this and they're like, I'm not going to give myself a hug, do it because there's no wrong
Yeah.
way of doing it. And it feels so comforting. You know, we all want that somatic touch. If you don't like the idea of a hug, place your hand on your heart and put
Yeah.
another hand on your belly and
Yeah.
breathe into that, you know, but touch yourself. I mean, rub your arm, touch your head, rub your
Pat
neck,
your
what,
back and
pat your back.
everything. Yeah,
Yes, do
absolutely.
something to touch yourself.
Mm, beautiful. I love how simple and powerful that is. We
Yeah.
sometimes think that everything needs to be some kind of complex, go away for 8-hour retreats to make things happen. And I myself in the work that I do, the profound experience of a hum and what it can do, for the same, the fight, flight, and freeze and getting the vagus nerve activated. And I love that you spoke about the turning on the tap, whether it's the radiator or whether it's the shower or the bath. So with that kind of example or that beautiful description, what comes through when you turn the tap on?
Well, you're releasing the energy that's stuck in the head, right? And sometimes it could be the thought you're thinking about or concept you're thinking about. So you imagine that that's releasing out. And then you can imagine that light is coming straight down through the top of your head. It could be a ray of light, it could be like a waterfall of light. And just letting yourself have that invitation, that visualization that also calms your mind. And if you can feel then sense that calming, that harmony,
Mm.
now you're back in flow. Because anything that feels good is flow.
Yes. And I love that flow is release and receive.
Yes, like a breath.
Yeah,
It's like nature,
absolutely.
right? Yeah,
That,
absolutely.
that is beautiful. What's your, let's say, definition of alignment? Because I know a lot of it is, I like to say, the inner universe to the outer world. So we're talking about how we're getting in touch with our energy, mastering our emotions and so on, getting into center, and then being able to speak the words and think the thoughts and so on. What's alignment?
Yeah, so every book I've ever written, it talks about alignment. In the desire factor, it's literally the very first step. Alignment is getting all of you in connection with, in agreement with, co-creating with the greater part of you. The greater part of you, whether you call it soul, your higher self, the divine, the goddess, the God, universe, that part wants everything for you. That part is pro you. That part is is generous, and there's just pure potentiality. When we can come into an agreement, into a place of meeting that part, and we feel good, now we're in alignment. Because when we feel good, that's alignment. That's where
Mm,
alignment is flow. Flow is alignment, right? And when you start there, then the energy is that momentum that gets created from that alignment. Now, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're out picturing, what you're saying, what you're doing is all moving in the direction of what you do want, because you're allowing that alignment and that flow to go into what's creative and feels expansive. And, you feel alive. You feel that aliveness and that growth, as opposed to when you're not in alignment. That's where the lack is. That's how you know if you're not in alignment, because you feel bad,
mhm,
right? You're not in the flow, right? You're stuck. You're in fight mode. You're spiraling around. It feels like you're spiraling and spraying kind of thing. And that's where we get into a place where we can stay stuck. But alignment can literally be just a thought away.
mhm.
Alignment can be an intention away, just an invitation. If you're stressed about something or feeling bad about something, just literally saying, okay, I'm inviting my soul to bring in the comfort and just wrapping me in light right now because I need it, right? I
Mm.
desire that. I want that. And feeling that and picturing that, that can bring us back into that neutrality and then that alignment.
That's beautiful. And I know that your work, you have a lot of amazing work, and I, having looked at your site, and I know you also have a very strong spiritual connection and spiritual practice. I don't know if you call it channeling, but you
Do.
have, yes, you do. Great. So we have this beautiful connection. How much of that do you incorporate in the flow factor? I know you've got many books. How much do you incorporate in terms of your spiritual understanding and practices into bringing us into a state of flow?
All of it.
Mm.
The flow is spirit, that's how you know. It's like that connection. So the council is who I channel,
Yes.
and they helped me write this, right? It's they'll tell me like, downloads. All of my books have written that way. It's where I receive those downloads. I remember one of my books called Taming Your Alpha Bitch. It was
I love it.
people are either like, what, or they like, oh my God, I love that book. So I wrote that one with a co-author, and I remember my literary agent came after, because that was one of the books that hit the New York Times. And she came to me and was like, all right, what's your next book? And I'm like, I don't know. It hasn't been given to me yet, right? I don't
Mm.
write books just because I have an idea for a book, right?
Mm.
It has to be, I have to receive it. It's given to me. And so to answer your question, all of my books, and especially the flow factor, it's really about mastering your energy to get into a state of flow. So all of the energy mastery processes, everything except for my stories in the book, right, are totally from higher intelligence and who I channel as ascended masters of the council.
That's beautiful. I'd love to touch a little bit on that creative process. So, I've spoken to many different channels, in whether it's on the podcast or friends and family and things like this. And I'm just curious about your process in what you're calling the download, but the process of writing. So, not necessarily that everything lands at once and then you're having to catch up with all the information. I would think that it comes in pieces in the way it's meant to, and so on and so forth. So I'd love to know about that. What are the conversations like in that for you as you're channeling this information?
Each of my books has been different. I mean, my very first book, Perfect Pictures, I was sleeping, and at 1:05 in the morning, I had this voice that was not my voice, and the information that was coming through, it was like they were giving me the first sentence, the first, paragraph, the first chapter, and I couldn't stop it. And so I got up because I started listening to it saying, wow, that's helpful. Thank you. Right. So I got up to write it down, and what happens to me is I start writing what I'm hearing, and then all of a sudden my hand just goes. It starts becoming automatic, where one hand is flipping the pages and the other hand is just writing, writing, writing. I mean, that happened to me with The Art of Having It All. That was just a constant 2 weeks of chunks. It's like just a chunk of information. And I remember my two boys. I'm a mom of almost a 15-year-old and a 16-year-old, and but at the time they were 3 and 4. And I told them, listen, if you see mommy pick up a pen and my journal, just give me a minute. Don't mommy me. Just, it won't last long. Just give me a minute. Right. And
Yeah.
so I was constantly picking it up and writing and write, and they would just watch me, and shh, don't, it's like, let her do it. And so the information would come out, I would close it up and then come back to them. And that's how that worked. And that was done within a 2 week period. I had another book, Quantum Success, where we were on a cruise ship, and my husband was in obviously the bed next to me. The boys were in this other room, and the only place for me to go was in the bathroom. So I stacked up a bunch of towels in the very small bathroom in this, in this cruise cabin. And again, it was like, I heard the voice, not just starting to talk to me like it did for Perfect Pictures. It was like, grab a pen and a journal. And it's like, okay, at 3 o'clock in the morning. So, I did this, I sit down and then I start writing. It was just automatic, so the concepts a lot of times will come out, maybe not writing out a full story, but the concept of, say, alignment, write this out and
Mm.
these are the points, right? And then the momentum, like what is that, and writing that out, so that later when I look at it and I put it into a Word document, it's like I've got the bullet points, and then I start to write it and fill it out, and then more information comes through.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
almost like, okay, get that bit fleshed out and we'll come back with the next. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're a channel on call, though, that it can happen at any point, at any time of day.
And they like in the middle of the night. I don't know why, but probably because I'm totally open. But yeah, I mean, a lot of my books, even with the flow factor, it would be 3 o'clock in the morning. They would all of a sudden they're like, contrast. Everybody has it. Doesn't matter who you are. And I'm like, yeah, I know that. And they're like, get up and write it. I'm like, okay. So I start writing that down, and then it's like hours later, I'm still up writing. So, it's interesting. The desire factor was very different because that came to me again while I was on a cruise ship. And I shared the story, in the front, and it was all about a high-end purse being in Venice. And I wrote what I needed to write, and then I put it away, and then it didn't flow, as in like, okay, let's do the next steps kind of thing. It was just put it away for now.
Mm.
And I thought, well, that's interesting because none of my other books were like that. Or it was all just go, 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 go with it. And it all literally flowed. And that was a put it away. And then, all right, now months later, here's another chunk of it. Right. And then I
Mm.
would write that out. And then so it came in like different sections and different pieces. Whereas even the flow factor, it was not even me wanting to again write another book. I had a university in Switzerland and Europe come to me and say, we want to give you a PhD in your public work. And so what haven't you said yet in your career? What do you wish you would have talked about that you haven't yet in your other books? And that's where the flow factor and the council was giving this to me. And it turned into, the flow of me writing this as a thesis and going for my PhD, it feels very resistant, but writing the book and putting the book out there feels very expansive. So I pivoted
Mm.
and it became a book instead of my thesis.
That's beautiful. And I want to pull out the thread that I think is really important to mention. Within everything that you're describing, there's a deep trust. There's a deep level of trust
Yes.
in yourself and trust in source and trust in what and spirit, what you're receiving, because every experience was different. And you could have gone down the road of, no, that's not how it works, because this is how it worked before. So there's a level of trust that things show up when they're supposed to, how they're supposed to. And I'd love to stretch that into flow again, because I think
So
it's really important. Yeah.
it's very important because faith, I like to call it faith,
Yes.
because the council calls our third eye our faith portal, right?
Mhm.
And what we project out through our third eye and what we see and visualize, we can't get any more faith, but are we putting our faith on what we want or what we don't want? And when we put our faith in what we don't want, again, we feel bad, and that's when we cut off the flow. When we're putting our faith in what we do want, what feels good, what feels aligned, then things flow there. So the council talks about how our first superpower as human beings is faith. Because
Mm.
when we have our faith towards what we do want, we have faith in ourselves, we have faith in something bigger, we have faith in that what we do want has the ability, has the potential, has has the potential to manifest, then we feel good,
Mhm.
right? And that's where the flow is. If we in our mind say that I first wrote a book, or say that I had an idea for a book, and I went, I can't do that, I don't know how to do that, I've never done that, I don't know anybody that's an author, my faith would be into not having a book published, right? And then of course I wouldn't take any action. Faith
Mhm.
creates that action, faith creates that movement. It also creates like a almost like a domino effect, because when we are in faith, that's when we then create strength. When we have faith, we have strength. And that strength gets activated, which then opens up portals of wisdom and love and divine connection and all of the other things that we have as powers as human beings. But it starts with faith.
I love that. My mother always used to say faith and gratitude are multipliers. And I never thought of thinking of having faith in the things you don't want. I never thought to use faith in that context. And I love that because it speaks to what you then focus on or have faith in or give gratitude towards is multiplying. So if it's focusing on those things that you don't want or you don't have, then you're kind of bringing that frequency again of lack. So it comes
Yes.
right back to what you spoke about at the start, which is incredible.
It's, I mean, we say that the lack of faith is doubt,
Mhm.
right? But it's like we're still practicing the faith of what we don't want.
Mhm. That's what I love the nuance of, right? So that's like that's very beautifully put. I resonate with that quite a lot. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yes, and so I'd love to know a little bit more about your how you work with clients with this work, because I'm sure that you have a wealth of experience and knowledge, and I'm sure many services that you offer. If we speak about flow, what are some of the examples that you can share about how people's lives have transformed doing these practices? How does flow show up practically for people right now?
Oh, in so many different ways. It's really beautiful. So we do meditation series. So for example, if you were to go to my website, christywhitman.com, there's a bunch of different choices of, say, finding joy, creating abundance, find super flow, all these different themes that we have. And they're 30 days of meditations that build on each other. So that's a great way to do it. Once a month, we do a quantum light shift. So there's always some kind of theme. We just did manifesting your desires, which is really powerful. The time before that was creating faith. So there's these really great processes. And I speak to, the concept, whereas the council will come in and do the energy work. And
Mm,
so what flow looks like is they have a very different, they can see people holographically where imprints are. It's actually really tremendous because they'll be like, you got a block here when you were 4 years old. And the person's like, oh my gosh, that's when my parents got a divorce, or that's when I got sexually abused, or that's when this happened or that happened. And so they help release those energetic blocks to create the flow, to allow, because what happens, let me just back up for a minute.
mhm,
And we talk about this in the flow factor. There's a term called a bushwhack, right? We're going along, feeling good, and then all of a sudden someone says something, or we hear some news, or we hear someone passes, or someone says a judgment on us, or we get our heart broken, or all the things that can happen in our daily lives that can settle into ourselves as traumas, either
mhm,
big T traumas like, abuse, or little t traumas like disappointments, right? But either way, if we don't process the energy of them, what happens is we collapse. So, like a turtle, right, wanting to protect itself, it goes into itself.
mhm,
We do that with our hearts. We close our hearts down, we close our energy down, but the energy stays contained in there. So I like to
mhm,
think of it like an animal, like a wild animal, like a tiger that's going around and around and around and around. It's creating energy. It's creating a vortex of energy that gets imprinted. And then because of law of attraction, we talked about that, right? It's part of our beingness. It's inside of our container, our emotional container, say, and we are then attracting more situations, circumstances, people, events that are vibrating at that level of, say, disappointment or anger or frustration or whatever it is. So if you find yourself, I'm constantly disappointed, right? There's imprints there that are calling that experience to you. I'm constantly triggered and angry, right? That was my thing. For years and years and years, I was always angry. I was angry at someone, I was angry at something, and I became totally free when I really started to process my anger, like really started to get in there, let it go. And I didn't have to go digging for why I was angry. I just was. And what
mhm,
came to me is that, there were a lot of times in my life where I didn't get what I wanted. And that made me angry, but I didn't know how to process the anger, so I would suppress it,
mhm,
right? And so then anything could trigger me. It's like beep, 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 anything could trigger me to be angry. So the council will help people go in and release those triggers, release those imprints. And we've had people go from stage 4 cancer to being, I mean, just this guy, oh my God, he's just amazing. Joshua, just totally like living a vitality type of life now. And he's better looking and stronger and happier than he's ever been. We've had people attract their ideal partners. We've had people release relationships that no longer serve them. We've helped people walk through a beautiful, leaving with love, divorce. We've had people increase their businesses, start businesses. We've had people attract money. Help them go through the grief of losing their husbands or their parents or even a grandchild or a child. That I just was help. We were just helping someone the other day that lost their adult child, and helping their grandchild move through the grief with them by giving them a hug, right? Starting that process. I mean, we've helped people over the years. I've been doing this for 25 years, release weight and keep it off. I
Mhm.
just I just saw a woman on Facebook the other day named Janet, and she went through a program I have called Creating Your Ideal Body. And during that program, she lost 35 pounds, has kept it off, and she is now, I mean, this is 15 years ago, has kept it off and is now doing dancing, and she's doing ballroom dancing, and she's just like, looks younger and more youthful than she ever has. And here's the reason: light is healing. Light, when you're connecting with the light of your soul, it energizes you. It's not only healing, but it's in that space of alignment. It's the divine design of health and wellness and of abundance and success and love and support, which all of those frequencies come from abundance. And when you feel and live your abundance, you shine.
Mm.
I've had clients say to people say to my clients, "Have you had work done? Like, what if you would, because you look
Love it.
younger."
Mhm. I love that. I love how vast the examples you shared are, and I'm really glad that you brought the physical into it. Because often people, when the word flow is used, I mean, it's often connected to creativity. It's often connected to action and how to do and productivity. And while those are important, I love that you are bringing it to, as you say, light, energy, and bringing it in that way, because then, yes, of course, it can impact the physical. Again, all the bodies, right? The
Yes,
physical,
all four of
emotional,
them.
all the right. So
Yes.
I really love that's the slant, because I think it's a piece that is not shared enough. So that's really, really cool. And my question then for you on in your own life experience, because I know you shared how you kind of got into the work that you're doing. Now, with the understanding, with the beautiful connection with the Council of Light and all of these things, what are some of the challenges that you in your life now that might just give you a little wobble? I know you have the tools to work through them, but what might bring a little wobble that you still look at with yourself now?
Well, I'll tell you, conversations with my 89-year-old mother, who has always been in lack, has never had anything that was good enough. You do something for her, have her over for something, and she wants more, right? It's
Mm,
never enough. And that's very challenging when you have a mother that is, and my dad was like that too. It's like, I can give this much, and you're still criticized because it's not enough. I can do this for you, but then you're compared to other people and how they do more, or that sort of thing. So I always say my mom is my master teacher. My father is no longer with us. He passed last year. And my mom is now navigating life without him. And I never really wanted to call her every day, but once my dad passed, I started to doing that just to let her know she's got support and that sort of thing. But it's still never enough. And
mm,
so it's really she's a master teacher to me, because it's like, if I get triggered, that's on me.
yeah.
Right. And then, but I can use my tools. I can
Mhm.
bring in the compassion, give myself a hug, do all the things that we talked about, and understand that it's like, I cannot just give her compassion. I have to first give compassion to myself for
Mm,
having a difficult, challenging mother, and then give compassion to her because she's the one that's living her life like that, right?
mm,
So I will say that that's the biggest challenge I have right now. I have two teenage boys, and parenting with my husband, two teenage boys, there's moments, right? I mean, I'll be real. There's this, it's being in the sandwich generation, having elderly parents and young kids, it's real. And having both sides of that, practicing this, it's like, if I can do this with that, anybody can do this. And I also want to say this too, just so you really understand my journey over the past, many years. My sister committed suicide.
Mm.
26 years ago. And I was doing my own energy work and doing this, for about 30 years now. And thank God I had this information, because that was my second book I wrote, called Why Did She Choose Suicide? Because I took a spiritual approach to healing from her choice and what I had to do to heal. So I had that. I've gone through a divorce. I've had mounds of debt. I had my son Maxim, who at age of 2 months of age, he had to go into the hospital and had open heart surgery. We almost lost him. So, I mean, I could tell you, I mean, I've had people betray me. I've had, I've lived a lot of life where I've gotten to utilize these tools and be better for it. Because when these traumas or imprints happen, we have either one or two choices. We can either get bitter and harden and, close down, or we can forgive and we can let the energy flow, and we can then move back into that light and move back into what we do want. And that's what I will always choose, no matter how much the tragedy is, no matter how big the struggle may be, no matter how difficult a situation is. We always have that choice.
That's so beautiful. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing so openly and vulnerably about your own stuff. I think that's really important and beautiful for people to hear, that what's possible, with what you're sharing and creating. There's something that's very different between taught and embodied. And so that understanding and actually going through it and continuing to go through it is incredible. One of the things that you said touches very much on something that I know to be true, and that self-empowerment comes with self-responsibility. And I love that you spoke about, yes, I can be triggered. Yes, these are the things that are touching me, but then that's on me. What do I do
Yes.
with it? And I think it's a really important reminder for us to know that we always have a choice, no matter how difficult or even how joyous the experience. We always can come back to, what do we want to do with it?
Exactly. That's what the flow factor is all about, and mastering our own energy to be able to enter that state of flow no matter what, right?
Mm.
To not beat ourselves up when we get out of flow. To not, if we do something like maybe we spend too much money, or maybe we ate too much sugar, or maybe we slept in too much, or stayed up too late, or, whatever the behavior, maybe we're impatient, or maybe we were reactive to someone, or maybe we did get hooked,
Mm.
right? But to bring that compassion and that understanding back to yourself and not beat yourself up, because that persecutor role, I talk about this in the drama triangle, or in the flow factor too, is the drama triangle, and the three roles that we play and others play inside the drama triangle. The drama triangle, or the black triangle, is where we beat ourselves up and we're constantly feeling guilty or shame, and or we're trying to do everything for everybody else, trying to make them feel good so we're okay, right? Or playing the victim or feeling powerless. I mean, these are three roles that most of us learn how to do. They're in our fairy tales, right? They're in our comic books, they're in our songs, they're on Broadway shows. I mean, we see this and we go, okay, I'm the good guy, that's the bad guy, right? And that person's the damsel in distress that needs to be helped. I'll be the good guy, right?
Mm.
These are roles that we all play. And when we know how to navigate out of them, and what lets the door open to that drama triangle, because it's a closed system, you feel like you're stuck and you can't get out of. When we have the doorway, it's like being in prison and you have the keys in your hand, you know?
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. What do you hope that readers will take away most from this book?
Flow, light, expansion, that they have a choice, that, that they're always, we've been telling our kids this, there's always a solution to any situation. And
Yes.
if we look at something as a problem, it's going to be a problem. But if you look at it as, okay, what are my options? What are my choices? How can I look at this differently? How can I speak about this differently? How can I perceive this differently? Right? How can I feel about this differently? What can I do differently? right? I mean, even my husband and I, this is a daily thing that we do. Today is a busy day. I usually pick up the kids from school. He's also out, has a both. I have a podcast recording at this time to go pick up the kids. He's got an appointment, and we're like, oh, who's going to pick up the kids, right? We started looking at not what the problem is, no, we're screwed and all that. We started looking at, all right, what are our choices and options? And we found one that's perfect. So when you look at that, there's a mandala that one of my teachers, Karen Wilson, taught me years ago. Is when you put your hands like this together, you create a butterfly, and this creates 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 9 options for any given situation. So I like to go, all right, what's the 9 options? My mind might not be aware of them yet. And it might come up with leave the kids at school forever, have them walk home, right? I mean, these are silly options, but what it does is it starts to spark, because as you're looking for the solution, it attracts more of the solution, right? So it's like, hey, call Bella, see if she could pick them up. Hey, Uber, like there's all these different options that come where then you go, that feels like the right option.
Yeah, that's beautiful. The thing is with 9 as well, and the butterfly transformation. So you're transforming from problem to solution. And also 9 is that completion. We're going into 10, right? We're going into the end of it. So there's always going to be something to follow. Then we start all over again. I love this. I never knew that it saw that in that way. I've used it in different ways and I love it so much. Christy, thank you. I'm
Thank
just so
you.
excited about your work, this book. I feel like there's so much more to pull from this. I'm going to have you back on at some point and chat about some of your amazing work. And of course, I will put the links and everything below for our guests at watchyourwords.com and all of your amazing work. I just want to celebrate you and say thank you for all that you're doing to bring light and flow and abundance and all of this yumminess into the world. We definitely need more of this, especially the way the world looks right now. So I really celebrate you and all the work you're doing.
Thank you so much. I received that. And thank you for what you're doing to create a platform for people like myself to spread our light. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you and I celebrate you back. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, I love to wrap up all of my episodes with the same question, and that is, what is your soulful sound to the world? And that's just a prayer or desire that you wish for the world.
Light. All things get healed in light so that more can access their light.
Oh, and so it is.
And so it
Christy
is.
Whitman, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
If you love this episode, hit that like and subscribe button and make sure to check out our other episodes. Thank you so much for tuning in, sending you love, healing, and sound wherever you are.